In the unforgiving expanse of the Old West, where danger lurked behind every ridge and survival was a daily battle, a woman with torn clothes sprinted desperately through the dust and shadows. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her eyes wide with fear, haunted by the pounding hooves of riders chasing her relentless across the barren landscape. Every muscle screamed for rest, but she knew stopping meant surrender to a fate worse than the wild itself. Alone and hunted, she was a fragile figure fleeing a storm she could not outrun. Just when all seemed lost, the silhouette of a lone cowboy emerged from the twilight. A man known more for his silence than his mercy, hardened by years under the scorching sun and the weight of unforgiving trails. Yet, in that critical moment, the harshness in his eyes softened. Without hesitation, he offered something rare in those wild lands: shelter and safety. Not just any refuge, but the comfort of his own bed, a simple but profound act that spoke louder than words. It was a gesture that would change both their lives forever. The woman, exhausted and broken, accepted the sanctuary with trembling hands, wrapped not only in the warmth of a bed, but in the unexpected kindness of a man who had seen too much to turn away. Their worlds, so different yet bound by hardship, collided in that quiet room, where trust began to weave its fragile thread. In a land ruled by lawlessness and fear, this act of generosity stood as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest places, compassion could still be found. Outside, the night held its breath, the danger still stalking just beyond the door. But within the walls of that humble shelter, the woman and the cowboy found a momentary peace, a reprieve from the chaos that chased them both. Their story was no longer just one of escape and survival. It was the beginning of something deeper, a journey toward healing and unexpected connection. Stay with us as we unravel the full story of this woman on the run and the cowboy who gave her more than just a bed. He gave her a chance to believe in safety, trust, and the possibility of a new dawn in the wild, Wild West. The woman's flight through the rugged terrain had not been a sudden choice, but a desperate necessity born from danger, closing in on every horizon. Her torn clothes and weary steps told a story of hardship few could imagine, the story of a soul running from shadows deeper than the fading light. The riders behind her were not mere strangers. They were relentless pursuers whose intent was as cold and unforgiving as the land itself. Each heartbeat hammered with the urgency of escape, every glance over her shoulder a reminder that her survival hung by the thinnest of threads. In the solitude of the wild, the old cowboy watched from a distance, his gaze sharp yet weighed by years of witnessing suffering and loss. His life had been marked by loneliness and hardened by a code carved in grit and silence. But beneath his rough exterior and steely eyes, there lingered a rare kindness, an unspoken rule to protect those who could not defend themselves. When he saw the woman staggering toward him, pursued and broken, something stirred within him, a quiet resolve to offer refuge where the world had shown only cruelty. Without hesitation, the cowboy led her to his humble cabin, a sanctuary carved from the wilderness, simple but steadfast against the storm outside. His bed, worn and weathered by countless restless nights, was no grand comfort. It was a rare gift of safety in a land ruled by uncertainty. As she collapsed onto the rough mattress, the woman found not only rest, but a flicker of hope, a fragile light piercing the darkness of her ordeal. The cowboy's act transcended mere hospitality. It was a profound statement of trust and humanity. The night settled around them with an uneasy quiet, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the distant howl of coyotes. Inside the cabin's thin walls, the woman and the cowboy shared a silence heavy with unspoken fears and tentative hope. Her eyes, once wild with desperation, began to soften under the warmth of the bed and the protection of a stranger who had chosen to stand by her side. In that stillness, the boundaries between hunter and hunted, stranger and savior, started to blur. Yet outside, danger was far from gone. The riders pressed closer, their intentions clear and relentless. The cowboy knew that offering his bed was only the beginning of a battle, one fought not just with guns or fists, but with courage, trust, and an unyielding will to survive. Their journey together had begun in the shadows, but it would soon be tested by the harsh light of day. The following morning dawned cold and gray, the world outside the cabin's door, a harsh reminder of the dangers lurking beyond its fragile walls. The woman, though still fragile, was determined to face the challenges ahead with the newfound strength the cowboy shelter had given her. Their connection, born in desperation and guarded by trust, was slowly evolving into a partnership forged by circumstance and choice. They were two souls navigating the wilderness of fear and hope together. The cowboy, once a solitary figure drifting through the vast frontier, found renewed purpose in protecting and guiding the woman. He shared with her the knowledge of the land, the hidden trails, the safe havens, the signs that whispered warnings. Each lesson was a thread weaving them closer, binding their fates in a tapestry of survival. For him, the woman's safety was no longer a duty, but a cause worth fighting for. Word of the woman's presence spread quickly, stirring unease and curiosity in the nearby settlement. Some saw her as a victim deserving compassion. Others viewed her as a troublemaker, a symbol of danger creeping into their fragile peace. The cowboy's willingness to shelter her challenged the town's rigid judgments, sparking quiet debates and wary glances. Their alliance was a fragile flame in a world that often preferred shadows. Despite the mounting pressure, the cowboy and the woman held fast to their fragile hope. Each day was a test of their resolve, a delicate dance of evading danger while building trust. They understood that survival required more than strength. It demanded courage to face both the wild and the hearts of men hardened by fear. Their journey was not just about escaping the riders. It was about reclaiming a sense of safety and belonging in a land that had offered little of either. As they prepared to face the challenges that awaited beyond the cabin's shelter, the bond between them grew stronger, an unspoken promise to protect, to endure, and to find light even in the darkest corners of the Old West. The town's reaction to the woman's arrival was a complicated mix of curiosity, fear, and judgment. While some villagers whispered tales of sympathy for the worn and desperate woman, others saw her as a threat, a symbol of chaos disrupting the fragile order they clung to so tightly. The cowboy, known for his silence and solitude, now stood at the center of a storm he never sought. His decision to offer the woman refuge challenged not only the townsfolk's prejudices, but also their sense of security. Every glance from the crowd carried suspicion, and every word spoken behind closed doors whispered warnings. Yet within the growing tension, a slow and subtle shift began to take root. The woman, bolstered by the safety of the cowboy's shelter and the knowledge he shared, began to reclaim her strength. Her torn clothes no longer symbolized defeat, but survival, and the lines of exhaustion on her face softened with each passing day. She learned the rhythms of the town, the unspoken rules, the silent hierarchies, and in doing so, started weaving herself into the community's fabric, fragment by fragment. Her courage became an unspoken challenge to those who doubted her worth. The cowboy watched her transformation with a quiet pride. His own world, once limited to the endless horizon and the lonely trails, expanded in ways he hadn't expected. Their partnership deepened beyond mere survival. It became a bond forged in trust and mutual respect. Together, they navigated the fragile line between acceptance and rejection, aware that their lives depended on it. In the harsh wilderness of human hearts, they found a rare kind of warmth, a light that neither could bear to lose. But danger was never far behind. The riders who had chased the woman still lurked, and shadows of the past threatened to unravel the fragile peace they had built. Rumors spread like wildfire, and fear turned some neighbors into foes. The cowboy and the woman understood that their journey was no longer just about evading pursuers. It was about standing firm against a tide of hostility that could swallow them whole. In the twilight hours, beneath a sky filled with stars, they made a silent pact to face whatever storms lay ahead together. Their journey was a testament to resilience in the face of fear and the enduring power of kindness in a world too often ruled by cruelty. As the days turned into weeks, the woman's presence began to soften even the hardest hearts in the town. Small acts of kindness she offered in return, helping a neighbor with chores, sharing stories of survival and hope, started to chip away at the suspicion that had once surrounded her. The cowboy's steadfast protection and quiet strength lent credibility to her efforts, showing that she was no longer just a fugitive, but a member of the community fighting to reclaim her place. Yet, not all welcomed this change. A faction of townsfolk, clinging to fear and tradition, plotted to drive her away, viewing her as a threat to their way of life. Tensions simmered beneath polite conversations, and the threat of violence loomed like a dark cloud. The cowboy, aware of the growing hostility, prepared to defend the woman not just with words, but with the fierce determination born from years of hardship on the frontier. Their bond, tested by adversity, became a source of strength for both. The woman's resilience grew, fueled by the unwavering support of the cowboy who had given her more than shelter. He had given her hope. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between acceptance and rejection, knowing that their survival depended on their unity and courage. Amidst the turmoil, moments of peace and connection offered a glimpse of what life could be, a future not just of survival, but of belonging. Around the fire, stories were shared, laughter was heard, and the harsh lines of judgment began to blur. In these fleeting moments, the woman and the cowboy found a sense of home that neither had dared to imagine possible. But the frontier was never truly forgiving. The threats lurking beyond the town's borders and the hostility within its walls reminded them that their journey was far from over. Yet, with each challenge, their determination to protect one another and to carve out a life together only grew stronger. The woman's transformation from a frightened fugitive to a resilient figure within the town was nothing short of remarkable. Wrapped in the cowboy's unwavering support and the safety of his shelter, she began to reclaim not only her strength, but her dignity. Her torn clothes no longer told a story of defeat, but of survival and courage. As she moved through the town, lending a helping hand where she could, and sharing quiet smiles with those willing to listen, walls of suspicion slowly started to crumble. It was a delicate process, one that required patience, bravery, and the unwavering belief that even the most broken could heal. The cowboy watched her with a quiet pride, knowing that their journey together was about more than escaping danger. It was about rebuilding lives shattered by fear and cruelty. Yet, beneath the surface of this fragile peace, tension simmered like a gathering storm. A faction of townspeople, bound by old fears and rigid traditions, viewed the woman's growing presence as a threat to their fragile order. Murmurs of dissent echoed in dark corners, and the threat of violence hung heavily in the air. The cowboy, hardened by years on the frontier, understood that protecting the woman required more than shelter and kindness. It demanded courage to confront those who clung to hatred. He steeled himself for the battles ahead, knowing that their fight was not just for survival, but for the very soul of the town. Their bond deepened with every challenge faced. The woman's resilience was fueled by the cowboy's steadfast presence, and his own spirit was rekindled by her determination to find a place in a world that had once cast her aside. Together, they became a beacon of hope and defiance, standing firm against the tides of fear and judgment. Their story was whispered around campfires and carried on the wind, a testament to the transformative power of compassion and trust in a land too often ruled by cruelty. Amidst the chaos, moments of quiet connection offered a glimpse of something more, a life beyond survival, filled with possibility. Around the fire, shared stories and laughter wove threads of belonging, weaving the woman and the cowboy into the fabric of the community. In those fleeting moments, the harshness of the frontier softened, revealing the enduring human spirit that could thrive even in the wildest of places. But the dangers lurking beyond the town's borders and the deep-seated fears within were constant reminders that their journey was far from over. With every sunrise, the cowboy and the woman prepared to face new trials, united by a bond forged in hardship and hope, a bond that no storm could break. The storm that had long been gathering finally broke one cold, restless night. A group of townsfolk, driven by fear and suspicion, gathered under the dim glow of lanterns, voices rising in anger and accusation. They saw the woman's presence as an affront to their way of life, and the cowboy's protection of her as a betrayal. Their intentions were clear: to drive them both out, to restore the town's fragile order through intimidation and force. The cowboy, standing tall and unwavering, faced the mob with the calm resolve of a man who had survived countless battles, knowing that this confrontation would test everything they had built together. The woman, strengthened by the shelter and trust she had found, stood by his side with a courage born of desperation and hope. Her torn clothes, once a symbol of fear and flight, now represented resilience and defiance. As the mob's voices grew louder, their determination only strengthened. They were not merely defending themselves. They were fighting for dignity, for the chance to belong, and for the right to rewrite the harsh rules of the frontier. The confrontation was fierce, a collision of old fears and new hope. But the cowboy and the woman's quiet strength spoke louder than threats. Slowly, some in the crowd began to waver, the power of compassion and courage piercing through years of suspicion. The battle for the town's heart was not won that night, but the seeds of change were planted in the minds of those who witnessed the stand. In the aftermath, the town was forever changed. The woman and the cowboy became symbols of resilience and possibility, their story a beacon for those who longed for kindness amidst cruelty. Allies emerged from unexpected places, and conversations once silenced by fear began to rise, weaving a new narrative of acceptance and hope. Though the road ahead remained uncertain and fraught with danger, the bond between the cowboy and the woman held firm. Their journey was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a testament to the enduring power of kindness, trust, and the human spirit to overcome even the darkest storms. As time passed, the once fragmented town began to feel the subtle shift that the woman and the cowboy had ignited. The woman, once fleeing for her life with torn clothes and desperate eyes, had become a quiet force of resilience and grace. Her presence softened the hard edges of the community, challenging old prejudices not with words alone, but through acts of kindness and unyielding courage. Each small gesture, helping with chores, sharing meals, listening to the weary, wove her deeper into the fabric of the town. The cowboy, once a solitary figure wandering the wild frontier, found a renewed purpose standing beside her, his quiet strength becoming a foundation not only for their survival, but for the town's fragile hope. The old coat he had given her, worn and patched from years of dust and rain, became more than a garment. It was a symbol of protection, resilience, and an unspoken promise. Wrapped in that coat, she carried the legacy of their shared journey, a journey through fear, pain, and finally, toward acceptance. The coat represented the warmth that had once saved her from the storm, and now served as a beacon that drew others toward compassion. It was a tangible reminder that even the smallest acts of generosity could ripple outward, transforming lives and communities. However, progress was never without resistance. The faction of townsfolk who clung to the old ways, rooted in suspicion and fear, continued to view the woman and the cowboy as threats to their fragile social order. Quiet threats grew louder, and hostility simmered beneath the surface, reminding the pair that the path to acceptance was still riddled with peril. Yet, each challenge only steeled their resolve. They understood that true courage was found not in solitude, but in standing together against adversity, refusing to be broken by hatred. In the quiet moments beneath the vast western sky, the woman and the cowboy shared dreams of a future beyond survival, of a life where kindness was no longer rare, and where no one would have to flee with torn clothes or fear. Their bond, forged in desperation and tempered by hope, became a beacon for others who longed for belonging and safety. It was a testament to the human spirit's capacity to heal, even in the wildest, most unforgiving places. As seasons turned and the land shifted from harsh summers to bitter winters, the town itself seemed to breathe anew. The legacy of one man's bed and one woman's courage began to reshape the very soul of the community, promising that even the darkest nights could give way to dawn. News of the woman's survival and the cowboy's protection began to spread beyond the town's borders, carried on the wind like a whispered legend. Travelers and traders spoke of the man who gave his bed to a fleeing woman, a story of unexpected kindness in a world often dominated by cruelty. This tale resonated deeply with those who heard it, inspiring others living in the shadow of hardship to believe that mercy and bravery could spark change, even in the wildest frontiers. Back in the town, the ripple effect of their story stirred conversations long silenced by fear and tradition. Slowly, walls built on suspicion and harsh judgment began to crumble as more people dared to question the status quo. The woman, once seen as a fugitive, now found allies among neighbors who recognized the courage it took to rebuild one's life from ashes. The cowboy's quiet steadfastness was no longer seen as mere stoicism, but as a pillar of strength and compassion that had saved not just one life, but many. Yet, the fight for acceptance was far from over. Old fears and grudges still threatened to pull the town back into darkness. The woman and the cowboy understood that their journey was an ongoing battle, a fight not only against external dangers, but against the internal resistance to change. But armed with love and an unbreakable bond, they faced the future with a fierce hope that their story could light the way for others. Their journey had transformed from a desperate escape into a powerful legacy of resilience and kindness. It was a story told around campfires and passed from generation to generation, a reminder that even in the harshest places, the human heart's capacity to care could endure and inspire. The bed the cowboy offered was more than a place to rest. It was a symbol of sanctuary, of trust, and of the possibility of new beginnings. As twilight settled over the rugged landscape and stars pierced the vast night sky, the woman and the cowboy stood side by side, their story a testament to the enduring strength of compassion and the promise of hope in the wild, wild west. The passage of time brought growth, not just in the woman's strength, but in the transformation of the town itself. Where suspicion and fear had once ruled, there now blossomed a fragile yet resilient hope. The woman's journey from a desperate fugitive to a pillar of quiet strength inspired many who had long suffered in silence. Her story, intertwined with that of the cowboy who had given her sanctuary, became a living testament to the power of mercy in a land that had often forgotten what kindness meant. The townspeople, once quick to cast judgment, slowly began to open their hearts, their eyes softened by the undeniable proof that compassion could heal even the deepest wounds. Yet the road was never easy. Shadows of the past lingered, reminding everyone that prejudice and fear do not disappear overnight. The woman and the cowboy faced moments of doubt and danger, times when the fragile peace they had fought to build seemed on the verge of collapse. But each challenge served only to strengthen their resolve. Their bond, forged in the crucible of adversity, became a beacon that others looked to for courage and guidance. Together, they stood as living proof that survival was not merely about enduring hardships, but about choosing hope in the face of despair. Beyond the borders of the town, their story echoed across the rugged landscape, reaching ears hungry for tales of redemption and change. Travelers shared the legend of the cowboy's bed and the woman who found refuge within it, inspiring whispers of revolution in places long dominated by fear. Their legacy was not only a personal triumph, but a call to all who heard it to believe in the transformative power of kindness and the strength that comes from standing with those in need. The coat, the bed, and the moments of shelter they shared became symbols of something far greater than themselves, a testament to the enduring human spirit. In a world often defined by hardship and loss, their journey illuminated a path toward healing, reminding us all that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward and change the course of many lives. As the sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the plains, the cowboy and the woman stood united, ready to face whatever the future held with hearts full of hope and hands willing to protect. Reflecting on their journey, we see that the act of giving, the cowboy's choice to offer his bed to a woman on the run, was a moment of profound courage and compassion. It was a refusal to turn away from suffering, a declaration that even in the harshest corners of the world, humanity can prevail. Their story reminds us that kindness is a powerful force, capable of breaking chains of fear and loneliness, and of building bridges where none seemed possible. The legacy they left behind challenges us to look inward and ask how we respond to those who are vulnerable or cast aside in our own lives. It calls us to be brave in offering warmth and sanctuary, even when it requires us to stand against the currents of judgment and cruelty. Their journey is a timeless example of how one simple act can spark a ripple effect, one that touches hearts and reshapes communities. In a world still grappling with division and hardship, their tale offers a beacon of hope. It invites us to believe that every gesture of mercy, every moment of courage, can make a difference. Their story is not confined to the pages of history. It lives on in each act of kindness we choose to give, in every shelter we offer to those in need. So, as the stars watch silently over the endless horizon, let us carry forward the spirit of the cowboy and the woman he protected. Let their story inspire us to be the light in the darkness, the warmth in the cold, and the hope for those who are running from their own storms. Because sometimes the greatest legacy is not what we build with our hands, but what we give with our hearts. The story of the cowboy who gave his bed to a woman fleeing danger is more than just a tale of survival in the Old West. It is a timeless reminder of the power that lies in simple acts of compassion. Through their journey, we see how kindness can pierce even the darkest shadows of fear and suspicion, transforming lives and communities. This narrative teaches us that courage is not only found in the quick draw of a gun, but in the quiet willingness to offer refuge to someone in need. As we reflect on their story, it becomes clear that the strength to change our world begins with the smallest gestures, offering warmth when the nights are cold, giving shelter when the storms rage. The cowboy's bed was not just a place to rest. It was a symbol of hope, a sanctuary where trust could be rebuilt and a future rewritten. Their legacy challenges us to ask ourselves how we respond when others are running from their own storms, and what role we can play in offering them a safe place to heal. In a world that often feels divided and harsh, this story calls on us to embrace empathy and bravery in equal measure. It invites us to be the light in someone's darkness, to be the unexpected kindness that changes the course of a life. Your thoughts and experiences are part of this ongoing conversation. Sharing them in the comments helps build a community where hope and understanding can flourish. And if this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel to join us in exploring more tales of resilience and heart. Together, we carry forward the spirit of that cowboy and the woman he sheltered, a spirit that reminds us all that no matter how wild or unforgiving the world may seem, kindness has the power to forge new paths and heal old wounds. Let us be the ones who give refuge, who offer hope, and who believe in the strength of compassion to change everything. Because sometimes the greatest acts of courage are the ones that come from opening our hearts and giving shelter to those who need it most.